and let us all do we can to build a better future. Dr. Cornell West is making a lot of liberals panic. Dr. Cornell West is making a lot of liberals cry, and I have to say good. Because there's this ridiculous narrative on corporate media in which they're constantly saying that a third party will be a spoiler party. It will destroy, it will help out the rivals. Now, look, the thing is, diehard vote blue no matter who, people. What makes you think even any of the Green Party people who voted for Dr. Jill Stein in 2016, or any of the Libertarian voters who voted for Gary Johnson in 2016, would have voted for Hillary Clinton? I mean, even if they all decided to vote for Hillary, again, popular vote doesn't matter in this country. The Electoral College does. Electoral College supersedes the popular vote. That's how this world works here in America. Now, in a normal democracy, popular vote does win. But this whole narrative that third parties disrupt everything, no, they don't. Okay? If I'm going to vote green, if I'm going to vote libertarian, if I'm going to vote socialist or independent, it's because those politicians, those people running for office earned my vote. And I get that a lot of people are burnt out by electoral politics, as they should be, because the two-party system has showed that they don't like us, they don't think about us, they don't respect us. But here, Dr. Cornel West on CNN, shout out to Case Study QB, who's speaking truth to power, brings awareness and stands up against the narrative that CNN is going to try and push. Let's play the video.
The growing Republican field for president is dominating the headlines, but other candidates are hoping the crowded field paves the way for another choice. The total number of Republican candidates right now stands at 11. Two Democrats are challenging Biden for the White House, RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. And then there is Cornel West. He announced last week that he is going to run on a third-party ticket. Now he is switching parties. Cornel West joins me now. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. You moved from the People's Party to the Green Party this week, and it makes you much more likely you're going to be on the ballot in a majority of states. Is that why you switched?
Well, I just want to make sure that poor and working people are at the very center of this discussion. But I want to begin by wishing you a happy birthday.
Thank you, sir.
And indeed. But what the problem is, we have a two-party system that doesn't highlight precious poor and working people. I'm thinking of Brother Michael and Brother Eddie right now in Rankin County, Mississippi. Neither party speaks to his situation. We got brown brothers and sisters in the borough. We got poor whites in West Virginia. Neither party, both parties tied to Wall Street, Pentagon, both parties so obsessed with the professional managerial class, they lose sight of poor people and working people. The best of America, and that's what my campaign is about, my dear Sister Dana. I want to introduce America to the best of itself, the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Heschel and Dorothy Day and Edward Said and Grace Lee Boggs and Louisa Marino. We've had some major voices concerned about poor and working people, not just here, but the militarism around the world and the victims of that militarism around the world. And so we're going to have a robust conversation in this presidential political season.
Mm-hmm. You have gotten the question many times. I've heard you being asked about being a spoiler, and you reject that argument, a spoiler for Joe Biden in 2024. But I want to give our viewers a little bit of history. In 2016, Jill Stein was on the ballot for the Green Party, and Donald Trump ended up winning in a nail biter, particularly in some of the key states that you're looking at right now. I'm putting up on the screen just so you know the number of votes that.
All right. So we're seeing that nail biter. I'm joined here with my good friend of the show, Craig Pasta Jardula. Yo, Pasta from the Convo Couch. Your thoughts on CNN censoring, or either that continuing on with, let me say remove censoring, but obviously CNN does censor, but CNN pushing that narrative of, oh no, you're crowding the field and people won't vote for Biden. Take it away, Pasta.
Well, they're doing it backwards right now. The Green Party traditionally pulls votes from the Democrats. So why they're showing that, I guess they're trying to say there's maybe a populist type of movie, but no, it doesn't make sense there. If you want to show the libertarian votes normally pull from the Republicans. So that's the way the math works. So they're showing the math upside down. But any way you try to slice it up, Kit, they're going to go after the third party no matter what, because at the end of the day, That's what we got. We got two active working cartels, the Republican cartel and the Democratic cartel. And that is, you stay in your area, we stay in ours. We don't like each other, but we come together to make sure what? A third party is never recognized. That the third party never gets that 5%. It doesn't get that public funding. The third party doesn't share the stage with us. That is the main goal of the two-party duopoly, which is the one uniparty, and that's what they're showing right there. They've exposed themselves. Happy birthday, Dana. You done stupid. You did something stupid over there.
Well, the thing is, like, I always found this to be really insulting towards third parties, as though they're the great villain. But the thing is, what a lot of Americans fail to realize, and look, here's the thing: the founding fathers, they have their flaws, but I will respect them, especially those that did warn against the fact that if we form parties, the parties will care more about the party interest than the people. And when there was a formation of political parties, there was the Federalists and the Democrat Republicans, then there was the Democrats and the Whigs, then there was the Democrats and the Republicans. And by the way, Republican Party under old Abe Lincoln was a third party. It was deemed, oh my goodness, another party, but that's what it was. And then there was at one point where the Democrats had control over the South, and then there was a great realignment where now the Republicans are in the South, the Democrats are in the North. Everyone thinks this is how it's always been, but third parties offer another choice. And we see in other democracies, republics, air quote, because again, there's corruption everywhere. There's no such thing as perfect. It never existed, because perfect is just a myth. But in those other countries, in Europe, Canada, Australia, even though they got their own fair share of corruption, voters have a chance to choose something else, various political parties, which is something that Americans lack. Now, my ideal world is where we have citizen ballot initiatives that call for the abolishment of all political parties, but that's a fight for another day. But we're seeing this vilification of third parties. And I, for one, find it insulting that the fact that automatically, a Green Party voter should go ahead and vote for Democrat, and a Libertarian voter should automatically vote Republican, or anybody else should vote for one of the two-party systems. That's not how it works, because people are not robots, okay? Even though, sadly, we do live in a world that's easily hypnotized. People are going to vote for somebody that's going to, the key word here, earn my vote. To quote Jimmy Dore, earn my vote. Before I pull up this next video, I just want to give the floor to you, because you have covered numerous incidents of the lack of election integrity, not only here in the United States. I know there was in California, for example, Convo Couch did a fantastic job. I know in collaboration with Nico House, calling out what was happening in Florida, but even outside the United States, you've seen examples of election integrity, elections working, elections not working. Your thoughts on what this could mean for the third-party movement in the 2024 election cycle as a whole?
Well, I think you just hit it on the nose right there as you were kind of pointing it out, dude. Like, we need the first things first. And I'm going to ask Dr. Cornel West when I interview him today. And, if people don't know, Dr. Cornel West will be on the Convo Couch at 5 p.m. Eastern. But I'm going to ask him about elections, because we can't get anything done. A third party doesn't mean anything if there's not a fair process. The only way we get another third party into the mix is if we have a fair process. And when you do go across these and you see these elections in these areas where they go, oh, there's dictators, Ortega is a socialist dictator. Well, Nicaragua, where they say he's a dictator, has a very clean, fair, and transparent process, much more than we have over here today. So no matter what, I mean, and it's so important we get this third party in there, right? We start with the third party, then we get the fourth. Hopefully we can knock it down. I get it. I think the fact is that there's so many parties in a lot of these other places with parliament, it makes parties irrelevant, right? You don't have the two parties coming together to control the cartel, to control the area. So it is vitally important, and I think that is the most important thing, because I've been saying for quite some time, and that's why people are busting my balls about the RFK thing and being excited about his campaign. But like I said, that's just to bring the discussions to the table. And we don't know what's going to happen down the road. And I wish some of the people who were coming out guns a-blazing, talking about Zionists over here too as well, just take it a little bit easier, because, we're going to have some questions for Cornel West today about the COVID and about his love for Dr. Fauci. And whether we don't like it or not, like I said to you the other day, COVID protocols, vaccine skepticism is way more higher on everybody's radar in the United States, unfortunately, than Israel-Palestine. It should be equally concerning. That's the way I look at these things. So, at the end of the day, we're going to have to get our elbows dirty. And I already see people going back and forth, and they got to calm down, because, yes, we do need a third party at the end of the day. And that is very, very important. So
Yep.
We'll see.
And again, look, to Dr. Cornell West campaign, to the Libertarians, or anybody else that's running a third party or independent campaign, I'm just going to point out my state. And again, when Harlan's media was on the streets, when we interviewed Libertarians and Greens, the story was the same. They had to get 20,000 signatures, 30,000 signatures. Sometimes I forget what election cycle it was. They had to get 50,000 signatures just to secure their names on the ballot because Illinois is extremely draconian. The one time in this state's history where the laws were laxed was in 2020. And then, right back to where it's supposed to be the next year. So I want to pull up this other video here from Case Study QB. And again, please follow him on Twitter. He's doing phenomenal work, but also support his YouTube page and Odyssey page as well, because again, he's being censored on Twitter, but that was done by the previous administration. So Elon Musk fixed that. So it's
Wisconsin compared to Donald Trump's margin there. What's to say, despite your convictions and your argument about the two parties not being the way to go, what's to say what I just showed on the screen won't happen with Cornel West on the ballot and not Jill Stein?
I mean, one, that, my dear sister Jill Stein, who got 1.07% of the vote, my dear brother Ralph Nader, who got more, he got about 4%, but you don't look to the weakest candidates as the full explanation as to why you lose. Sister Hillary Clinton lost because she was not a good candidate. She didn't go to Wisconsin, and you know even better than all of us all the various factors that go into why she also didn't lose, not just that one factor. So the idea of putting all the responsibility on the candidates who get the fewest votes compared to the other big two is just a way of rationalizing a two-party system that has become more and more outdated and antiquated, both tied to big money and big military, and they don't allow us to speak to 60% of our fellow citizens who are wrestling every day trying to put money on the table and waiting for the next check. And the gross wealth inequality continues, and the military budget continues to expand. We saw this with Brother Biden. But I do want to say this, though, just quickly, that this campaign is also about getting beyond hatred and revenge. You see, I don't hate Brother Trump. I hate his lies and his gangster neo-fascism. I don't hate Brother Biden. I hate his hypocrisy, and I hate his milquetoast neoliberal policy. And we have to be able to engage in a public conversation that gets beyond eye for an eye and this vicious kind of revenge, so that it reinforces the distrust and the paranoia. And that's a immeasurable dimension. That's the invisible dimension of my campaign that's going to set a different kind of tone of what my brother Cliff West called a paradigm shift in American politics. Because I'm a jazz man in the world of politics, and the jazz man is always about improvisation, always about compassion, always about style, and always about a smile.
And again, I like the message that is being presented here, because again, CNN is still harping on that idea of that, third parties are going to be a spoiler candidate. No, they're not. It's another choice. It's another option. And there's only been few instances. And again, I'm just going to name just a couple that really stand out to me. I know that the audience, I know you've given a couple others, but here's a couple that really stood out. There was Ross Perot. There was when he was facing off against Bill Clinton and Bush Sr. There was Ralph Nader with Al Gore and Bush Jr. There was Dr. Jill Stein's campaign in 2016. I know she ran earlier. There was a previous election cycle she ran earlier.
Cynthia McKinney.
Yeah, thank you for that correction. And then there's also even though it didn't really, it should have gone further. There was Theodore Roosevelt and the Bull Moose Party. So voters need another choice. Voters need another option, and it's long overdue that the American people actually have a healthy, robust choice. We get to choose whatever we want to eat, or even though it's manufactured food, but we choose what we want to watch, even though sometimes corporate media likes to control that narrative. Oh boy, now that I keep on correcting myself, Pastor, do we have any choices at all? And how the hell do we break this then?
Well, you know what I'm looking at when I look at those numbers, I'm looking at one thing. And if you want to call that Libertarian or that Green Party the spoiler, so be it, call it. But if we had election integrity, if we push for transparency, if we had a system that we can stand behind that was absent of proprietary software in a public funded election, and they did it where it's cast, it's counted and public, then those 2%, those 3%, those 4%, you know what, kid? They might be 5%, 6%, 7%. And then the public funding comes. And then you can't ignore that candidate. Then you can't ignore that party. Then the third party is there. They're on the stage. They're on the ballot. And that's what needs to happen. Because now then, instead of this whole situation where, the Democrats can take one point of view, the Republicans can take the other point of view, it's WWE wrestling, you got that part in the middle that's pulling them, that's making them go to get the voters on the left or making to get the voters on the right. They got to now compromise, right? This is what Jesse Ventura we saw in Minnesota when he became the governor. The Republicans, to get some things done, they had to compromise. The left, the Democrats, they had to compromise. And when you compromise, you reach more of a middle ground, more of a populist decision. So that's what I'm looking at when I see those TVs. Yes, they are the spoiler, and good for them. They should be the spoiler.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. I've been yelled. I want to play one more video here. Again, it's on CNN. There's another video I have towed up, but it's from Fox News. And I think my audience has been bombarded enough with the Fox News sham of that sinking ship, because yes, Fox News will sink like CNN. Not yet, but it soon will. But, I remember easily being called a Trump supporter by voting for Dr. Jill Stein, or
misogynist,
misogynist, sexist, all that kind of stuff. Or either that when I've interviewed libertarians. And yes, there was a lot of, this is the height of the activist movement between 2016 to 2020, when I've interviewed libertarians and I said, I've interviewed these people and I've interviewed these individuals. Oh, those aren't good enough. You shouldn't interview those people. So there's always you shouldn't talk to third parties. You shouldn't talk to organizations that want to form a new political movement in this country. And again, people are easily hardwired in this country because of the Trump derangement syndrome. See, Trump isn't the problem to politics. He's a parasite that used the neoliberal system that was designed by both Democratic and Republican lawmakers. Third parties didn't bring us into this nightmare. It's these dynastic families and these politicians who've been in power for 20 plus years and more that have been controlling how we live in this country. It isn't the Green Party's fault or the Libertarians' fault or a Socialist Party or a Forward Party or People's Party. It's not third parties' fault. It's the two-party system and their corporate donors with the help of corporate media giving you this narrative.
It's the CIA's fault.
It's the CIA, FBI, DOD. It
is the CIA's fault. They're a government within a government. You know what I'm saying?
It's the 1, 2, 3. It's a 3-letter name acronyms.
But the CIA is the big one. It really is the big one. Those are the ones that seem to appear to be working directly for the oligarchs. Those are the ones who've controlled elections here and abroad. Those are the guys that we got to watch out for more than anything. I think I really think they're at the top of the food chain. And listen, I always talk about Colombia. I went to all these places. But Colombia was really special, Kit, because I had spoke to them. I had spoke to the magistrate who was like the one odd guy fighting for the people when it came to elections. And he had told me every single election for the last 5 elections, the people, they recognized what was in front of them. That's the first thing they do. They learned, they understood, they were politically involved. They understood the election process. And every single election, they got one rule changed in their favor. One rule changed in their favor until eventually this last election, it was the most transparent, free, fair election they ever had. And they're not crazy about their candidate. They even compromised on their candidate because the people understood that they had to build a coalition to get him in Gustavo Petro. He was once a guerrilla, but then he has been working with the Clinton administration. They felt like he was the best within the establishment to get it done. But the election system they worked on and the people got power. And that was the most important thing for them right now. Moving forward, it's going to be exciting. But once again, there's talk about, them cooing Gustavo Petro in Colombia. Colombia's a NATO country. It's one of the only Latin American country that has NATO status. It gets more weapons in Latin America than any other country out there. There are American bases there. So he's got to walk on eggshells. But seeing that gives me hope, thinking that if we, the people, just get our heads out of our ass, because you know what one thing that me and Fiorella said to each other on January 6th when we were there, okay? And this is not when we were by the Capitol and seeing people going in. This was just seeing the mass amount of people there at the Ellipse and walking and seeing all these people. It's like, wow, where were the progressives when they treated Bernie? Why didn't they show up? You know what I'm saying? And I was talking with the crowds. We were talking elections.
Because Bernie left his people. That's what happened.
But the
Bernie
people
didn't
went
fight
with
for
him
his people.
too.
Yeah.
A lot of people went with him. Some of us said, F no, we went elsewhere. But that was the thing. These are our elections. It shouldn't be a right-left thing, a blue or red thing. It should be a fair thing. Because these election systems, you know who it hurts most? The progressives that are standing behind the corruption, and it's because they're happy with the results and not the process. It's going to hurt them, kid, because they'll never get their grassroots candidate in. Never. Not with this system.
Agreed. I want to pull up this one more video here and talk about, again, and this is a key word here, shout out again to Case Study QB, how both parties lose sight of poor and working class Americans. Again, shout out to Case Study QB. He's wrongly being censored. Please support his work and follow him. Also, shout out to Roger Meadows as well. I got a special announcement after this segment.
You made the arguments during the 2020 campaign similar to what I'm hearing you make now when you were backing other candidates, Bernie Sanders to be precise, but you did end up voting for Joe Biden because you said 4 more years of Donald Trump could be worse. Why isn't that the case for you this time around?
Well, I learned from my very dear brother, Bernie Sanders. You know, I have a very profound respect for him, even as we disagree on a number of things. But I'm thoroughly convinced he was treated unjustly. I'm thoroughly convinced that the corporate wing of the Democratic Party will always use the progressive wing as a kind of window dressing. The progressive wing will never triumph. We almost triumphed, and then the neoliberals came together after the call by Obama to Amy and Pete and the others. And therefore, I'm thoroughly convinced that first, pushing back Trump, that's exactly what I tried to do, part of an anti-fascist coalition. But then I began to see you never, ever defeat fascism with a milquetoast neoliberalism that doesn't have vision and passion. The only way you defeat fascism that is coming to America, if we do not fight, is a strong vision, strong passion, and then I'm going, as I've said, to Trump country itself. Yeah. I'm going to my white brothers and sisters and say, don't scapegoat the most vulnerable, confront the most powerful. There's another way of looking at that.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Forgive me for interrupting, but I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned to my colleague Jake Tapper that you're going to go to Trump country. What specifically do you think that people who are ardent Trump supporters are going to be receptive to in your message?
Well, one, I don't believe that they're homogeneous and monolithic. About 1 out of 10 of them voted for Brother Bernie himself. They were looking for an alternative because they see through the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party, talking about justice on the one hand, but tied to big money on the other. And so I want to go back to those folk and recognize when I see a Trump supporter, I don't see a stereotype. I see a human being, many of them who are wounded, and too many of them follow a neo-fascist.
All right, hold on.
Terrible.
Hold on. Again, we got to address this because I talked about this when we were on radio back in 2016. I talked about when we got back on the radio way back in late 2017, 2018, the fact that there were Trump supporters, diehard Republican voters that were willing to support and help and canvass and be delegates for Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign. I know, controversial statement because not everyone thinks the same, because no one, even in corporate media, bothered to talk to those Republican voters. Hey, why are you supporting the socialist Bernie Sanders? Why are you supporting him? Aren't you supposed to be his enemy? He's your bad guy. He's a socialist. But no, people are not robots. People see things. Now, even though corporate media has successfully brainwashed a lot of us, I think a lot of us are waking up. 50% of this country identifies itself as independent, as they should, as they definitely should. However, again, you got to talk to these voters. And dare I say it, I think Dr. Cornell West is doing something that the DNC and the Vote Blue, no matter who, and the AOCs and even the Bernie Sanders won't do anymore. And that is talk to people of a different perspective. Okay. Maybe if you talk to them, hear what they're saying. I want to give you the final word because you're going to be interviewing Dr. Cornel West later this afternoon. And I think it's important that I want to end this note with you because, again, he's going to be doing something that politicians say they do, and that is talk to voters.
Yeah.
Politicians never do that. He will. Go ahead. Take it away.
He's doing it wrong, Kit.
How?
This term, well, I'll tell you why. This term neo-fascist. This term neo-fascist is a weaponized term that's been misrepresented. The term neo-fascism is absent of what actual fascism means. Actual fascism is the merger between corporations and state. The neo-fascist term, which is supposed to be a term that after World War II, these neo-fascists, these new fascists appeared, and they've completely taken the tenets of fascism and put it into that term neo-fascism without making the term fascism the heart and soul of the word, which is corporatism, which is the merger of certain state security, the merger of state and corporations. That's what fascism is. So when you say this term neo-fascism, and why I say he's doing it wrong, how are you going to go in there and say, I'm going to talk to Trump people when you're calling them neo-fascists and you're saying he's their neo-fascist supporters? You're kicking yourself right in the face. You're not going to reach out to these people. These people are going to give you the hand right away. Kit, you know this more than anybody. There is no leftist that does what I do as much as I do when I go into Trump land, when I speak at Trump events. I was at a Kerry Lake event the other day. The Libertarian, I build bridges all over the place. And I'm telling you this right now. This is the first question I will ask Dr. Cornel West. How, with this language of neo-fascism, which once again is a weaponized word, it is absent of what actual fascism means, which is corporatism. This made-up word is going to be a cancer for you because the people in Trump land are going to be like, get out of my face, man. I don't want to hear you. You're calling me a fascist. No. He's got to change this. He should drop that damn word. And it's so stupid because who's the bigger fascist right now, Biden or Donald Trump? And I think that's the whole thing. The fact that he excuses Biden, calling him a neoliberal disaster, but Trump is the neo-fascist, that's once again manufactured consent for your wrong move of telling people to vote for Biden and we'll push them left. If you had a gun to your head right now, kid, and you had to vote for Trump or Biden, I would bet $1 million that you would vote for Trump. So would I over Biden. Trump didn't get us close to World War III. You know, I hate the Palestinian situation in Israel. It is sad. But the situation in Ukraine with Russia is a proxy war. That is scary. That is nuclear war, nuclear holocaust. You know what I'm saying? And he has the same language towards Putin. He's a gangster. He's a thug. No. Dr. Cornel West, who has taught me how to talk to other people. He was the first person who pushed me. Go talk to other people. Don't be scared. They're still your brother. They're still your sister. You got to love them even though what they're doing wrong. He needs to get this straight because this is going to hurt him if he does not.
Fair enough, and I'm looking forward to seeing that interview. Look, folks, I'm not going to tell any of you how to vote. In this political system that we have here in this country, all of you need to make your own choice. And I know some of you are choosing not to vote at all. And for that, I respect you for it. If you might ever reconsider it, then support good ballot initiatives if you live in a ballot initiative state and stand against the bad ballot initiatives that would try and take away your freedoms, right? But this election cycle, we need to see a rise of third parties. And you know what, Pasta, you did bring up a good point, especially with that wording that Dr. Cornel, again, calling people that, it's just as similar as when I was called a Trump supporter when I voted for Jill Stein, or how I'm a conspiracy theorist for supporting libertarians, how I voted for the Libertarian Party in the 2022 midterm election cycle, which, by the way, again, shout out to the Illinois Libertarian Party. You were able to get on the ballot, so you earned my vote. I wasn't going to vote Democrat or Republican, so I was going to vote independent. So that's how I view things. And the words do have power. And it's still early. It's 2023. It's not 2024 yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing that interview. And like I said before, folks, this election cycle is only intensifying, and it's still 2023. This is still only the beginning. So grab the popcorn and enjoy the show.
And don't be scared to think that something down the road unusual can happen. I don't like the way the not only Dr. Cornel West with the crack pipe statements too, but as some of the people who follow, Cornel West just going and kneecapping RFK. And I know RFK is terrible, awful when it comes to Israel, Palestine. But, there could be a coalition down the road. You never know. And really, to tell you the truth, who's the real enemy right now? It's Biden. It's the corporate donors. It's the military-industrial complex. It's the CIA. It's those who are holding power right now. Let's not lose sight of that, right? You know what? I hate that the Hillary campaign ruined that term. Don't let what is it? Perfect be the enemy. Perfect be the enemy of good, or whatever it is. don't let perfect be the enemy of the good or some shit. Well, we got to adopt a little bit of that. We can be critical of people, whatnot, but just understand. People have to understand what's in front of us and lay it out there and be open to anything happen right now. Right now, before we even have the revolution, we got to get everybody on the same page, which means we can't be attacking each other, our neighbors. We got to attack the people upstairs. Go ahead, buddy.
That's a fair point, and the only way we're going to do this is by working together and, dare I say it, fighting for a better future.